Bitcoin takes another big bite out of the bears. A new yearly high busts the moon boys big time to start off this new trading week. And the reason will leave you shaking, breathless, and begging for another bust. As we saw pretty quiet, muted trading for Bitcoin over the weekend, we absolutely begin this new week with two massive things. A price breakout, and more importantly, some things showing up in the actual inflows and on-chain metrics that will absolutely leave you breathless and begging for a bigger bust. So if you understand that this Bitcoin bust is going to be absolutely big, but you also deep down understand this Bitcoin bust will be truly bigger than anything we've seen in the history of mankind, hit that like, hit that subscribe, get signed up to Femex Below if you want to buy Bitcoin or altcoins. And without any further ado, let's absolutely jump into these charts. As you can see today, after trading basically sideways since February 13th, so for the past 2 weeks, Bitcoin has now put in a new yearly high, and it's absolutely very big. We're already seeing, after just a couple of days ago, seeing the daily chart kind of shift negative here. We're already seeing potentially that shift quickly reverse. Now, it's way too early to say that that's exactly what's going to happen in the next 1 to 2 weeks. We're only going to go up. However, there's absolutely gigantic data we're going to be jumping into. And also, before we really get into that, let's look at the weekly chart for Bitcoin with a completely new, a fresh weekly chart, a fresh weekly candle for Bitcoin. We can see that, is this going to be a week where we actually have the gigabust? Are we going to see this literal final last gigantic level of resistance? Again, it's not even that big considering everything else we busted above was way bigger than the current overhead resistance. However, are we going to see a potential retest of this week? Anything is possible. Anything is possible. Now, before we get too bullish and before we really jump into these charts, even though it's technically not possible to be too bullish because in fact everyone is too bearish, nobody is bullish enough if we actually look at the data. Let's take a look at a few things here. So we see MicroStrategy basically, as always, buying another massive amount of Bitcoin, about $155 million worth of Bitcoin. This is very big. We're also seeing that GBTC so far is sending a very small amount of Bitcoin to Coinbase Premium, which since the ETF launch about 11th of January, this is the lowest amount Bitcoin so far that GBTC has sent to Coinbase prior to the opening of the trading day. The last 2 trading days, GBTC sent more than 150 million to Coinbase Premium, and a total outflow at the end of the day was 55 and 44 million. Today we may have something even lower than that, and potentially even an inflow, which would be unprecedented, right? Extremely bullish. But we can't know that. The trading day is just really opened, and we can't know that just yet. We have to wait until the end of the day to see what truly happens here. We're also seeing BlackRock's ETF hitting a record high. Basically, anybody that bought BlackRock's ETF now being in profits, right? Very big. This is market open, and look what happened to Bitcoin right after that. Basically just going crazy as soon as the market opened. And I believe that this is also the influence and the power of the Bitcoin ETFs. Expect maybe more of this because of the word that everyone used to hate, ETFs, or the acronym ETF, but now it's considered one of the favored ETF, the favored words by the baby bulls. We're seeing huge volume for IBIT, BlackRock's Bitcoin ETF. I mean, look at this spike right here, very big. Now, Wellpan also pointing this out. If Bitcoin would overtake gold, it would put Bitcoin roughly at about $720,000 per Bitcoin, which is about $750,000 per Bitcoin. He's saying probably not this cycle, but who knows? I don't think it'll be this cycle, but guys, as I've been saying over and over, the dynamic of the market right now, nobody truly knows how Bitcoin spot ETFs are going to impact a Bitcoin bull market. We have never had Bitcoin spot ETFs at the beginning of a bull market at all. And I want you to remember just a couple of months ago when I was getting these comments of people saying, well, Canada's had Bitcoin spot ETFs. Canada's had Bitcoin spot ETFs. They're not going to do anything. Those people haven't said much since since the Bitcoin spot ETFs were approved, right? Let's be honest, guys. Does anyone care about the Canada Bitcoin spot ETFs? No, nobody ever cared. The U.S. market is what has been gobbling up. The U.S. market is, I don't know, you know how much more influential and important. So it's funny, ever since the Bitcoin ETFs launched, I have not heard that same, I was hearing it every day up until the Bitcoin spot ETF launch. Canada has Bitcoin spot ETFs and they didn't do anything. Well, I think they are shutting their mouths now. I think they understand that, oh, actually these Bitcoin spot ETFs are absolutely blowing Bitcoin massively to the upside. So with that being said, Bitcoin, we need a 14x here. to have a higher market cap than gold. So that's a lot. That's a lot. But my target, I personally think $150,000 per Bitcoin is realistic for this cycle. And in my opinion, I think it'll come towards the end of 2024, which is earlier than some people are expecting. Some people are expecting, mid 2025 even. I believe even some people saying out till later in mid 2025. I don't know. It's possible if maybe these cycles are going to change a little bit, but I just think that I personally think it'll come a little earlier. And honestly, the last cycle also kind of topped out a little earlier. We went up to about 64,000, and then we had a lull in the summer, and then ultimately we did go up to 69,000. But what? That's another $5,000 off the all-time high after waiting like 6 months. It wasn't. I mean, I personally think that the last cycle was way different than people were predicting. If the last cycle was exactly the same as people were predicting before it happened, we would have hit 100,000 US dollars, and it would have happened differently than the last bull cycle did happen. We're also seeing Bitcoin is demonetizing gold as a store of value. Look at these outflows of gold. If we look at this, gold is this orange line right here. And then this is Bitcoin in blue. And then, wow, that's a very low resolution image. I'm not even going to. And purple is Bitcoin exiting grayscale. So that's extremely, extremely big. And this is absolutely huge. So Dan Gambardello pointing out that an imminent decision on the Coinbase SEC could happen any day. There's basically 3 scenarios. 1 is amazing, 2 is good, and 3 is worse, but ultimately will end up being good. It's just not the one that is preferable. And basically, I just want to highlight number 1 would be Coinbase, Judge Falia granting Coinbase the motion and completely dismissing the case. This is what we'd all want, and this absolutely would pump altcoins, specifically ones that are mentioned in the case, like Solana, like Cardano, and just massive gains here. So it's important to watch. I personally think we're going into a very strong bull market regardless, but I think it's very important to keep an eye on this. So far, the SEC is 0 for 2. Will they become 0 for 3 against these crypto companies and this crypto litigation? Also, bullish megaphone pattern, basically a target of about 60K according to Jelly on X on Twitter. This is a target or a pattern we've actually been looking at for the past week or so, and it looks potentially possible now. And if we look at Bitcoin on the daily chart, you can see, I mean, it looks as though we kind of are holding on the top of this previous overhead resistance for Bitcoin. Weekly chart looks pretty strong. It looks pretty good. On the daily chart for Bitcoin, maybe are we negating some of this bearish momentum? It's possible. We definitely, this is awesome, put in a new yearly high. It's the highest Bitcoin has been going all the way back to December 5th, 2021, like the first week of December 2021. This is the beginning of a new bull market, so it's no surprise. Breaking out of this about 2-week-long, multi-week falling wedge pattern, bull flag pattern. And people pointing out a target much higher than we currently are. But the biggest test, in my opinion, is what I talked about, is 57. 57 is going to be a big level to watch. 57 is basically the last level of volume, the last level of resistance before Bitcoin really can reach all-time highs. How far away are we percentage-wise from all-time highs for Bitcoin? Like 25%. About $15,000. That's crazy. And the Bitcoin halving it's not even here yet. Unprecedented. We've never been this close to an all-time high when the Bitcoin halving hasn't even occurred yet. So that in itself is just insanely bullish. And all of that as well, the stock market today is not doing amazing. It's actually a little red day. DXY also a little red today. But I personally think that all of these Bitcoin ETF inflows are giving so much buying pressure to Bitcoin that it simply is rising up. And it is possible that these Bitcoin ETFs could be the catalyst that actually gives Bitcoin its first ever decoupling from everything else. Okay, this is possible now. And we're actually kind of seeing it over the last few weeks. We've been seeing it happen. The big question is how much can it happen and for how long? And get signed up to FEMEX below if you want to buy Bitcoin or altcoins. And without any further ado,